Chris Merrill, Joe Huizinga.
It's the Chris and Joe Show.
KTAR News.
Hey, good afternoon. Chris Merrill, Joe Huizinga. Imagine that you are sitting down with your kids and you want to spend a nice dinner together. And what do your kids do? You say, kids, would anyone like some of our roast beef? And the kids say, what? Would you like some roast beef? What? Would you like some? What are you doing?
You getting fubbed?
I'm on the phone. Of course. Every time we turn around, on the phone, teenagers especially, on the phone. What are they doing? They're on largely TikTok, or they're on the gram. They're certainly not on Facebook. There are all kinds of studies out there that show that an awful lot of people, an awful lot of kids are on the social media, and as a result of that, it's having some detrimental effects. In fact, Joe, you were pointing out the stats from the American Medical Association.
From 2019, the AMA put out a study that showed that the risk of depression doubled for teens who were spending 3 hours a day on social media.
The risk doubled. So should something be done about this? According to the Surgeon General, yes.
Slap a warning label on all of social media.
I don't know how that would work, and I don't know how effective it would be. Here to talk about that is our clinical family therapist, Michael Klinkner, joining us now. And Michael, good to have you back on the program. Are you seeing this? I mean, you deal with teenagers. Are you seeing that social media that is causing some issues with the mental health of some of the people that you deal with?
Hey, guys, thanks for having me back on.
Yeah.
Yes, I see it directly all the time. And so the effects can come in a number of different ways. Lots of times, some of the studies that were also mentioned that anxiety will sometimes double or triple, especially for teen girls with the ongoing exposure. That's because of filters and the unfair and unrealistic expectations that are put on them for their behaviors, for their bodies, for exercise. And so we'll see a lot of that coming up. The more time they spend on social media, especially things like TikTok and Instagram, the more we'll see a rise in depression and anxiety. Also, there's so much bullying that can take place too through those social media apps from their peers.
So, Michael, what do you suggest to parents and kids that they do then, though? We just mentioned the stat that the AMA showed back in 2019 that the risk of depression doubles for teens who are spending 3 hours plus a day on social media. If you have a child who you're treating, or mom or dad come in and say, gosh, we just can't get them off the social media, but we know it's leading to negative side effects and consequences, what kind of discussion do you have?
Well, I encourage parents, one, to put limits on the phone. And so you don't have to take their phone to put the limits on, depending on who your provider is or what kind of phone they have. But there's a lot of parental controls that you can have apps turn off after a certain period of time. And then that's just it. They're just out of their time. But also to have the conversations with your kids before you start putting limits in place around why you're doing it. And it's hey, kiddo, I know you think it's not affecting you, but I can't ignore every bit of research that says it's bad for you. And anything over 3 hours, there's going to be a negative effect. And as your parent, it's my job to protect you. I have to protect you from this too. Your kid is not going to agree. They're not going to say, yes, please protect me from this thing that I'm attached to. It's not going to go well that way. They're going to kick, they're going to scream. And frankly, they're going to have withdrawals. There's a lot of dopamine going on as a result of these social media apps. They're going to be missing that dopamine. They're going to be grizzly bears about it. That's okay. This is a fight worth fighting.
Michael Klinkner is our clinical family therapist. We talk about this. The Surgeon General, who Joe couldn't name before today's show, Vivek Murthy is his name. He's asking that Congress pass legislation to put a warning label on social media. I
won't be able to name him tomorrow either. Don't worry.
Assuming if we say a warning label on social media, I mean, it's got to
be like a pop-up, right?
I would think so. Or unless it's going to be like a sticker on your keyboard, like mine says Intel Pentium inside.
Well, what else has warning labels on it? Like packs of cigarettes have the Surgeon General's warning on there. Yeah,
but that's because we can't do a pop-up with a pack of cigarettes.
Right. So I would think it's got to be something that shows up on the website that after you use it for so long goes away. But how is it also going to be able to distinguish between a teenager using it and Chris Merrill or Joe Huizenga using it.
Especially if they do some sort of a mental competency test. Then we're in real trouble. Michael Klinkner is our clinical family therapist. Michael, I'm thinking about the cat already out of the bag. If I have, say, a 12-year-old and the 12-year-old says, Dad, I want to get a phone, I want to get a phone, I want to get a phone. At that point, I can probably set some parameters and some guidelines and say, if you have a phone, here's what you have to have. Because at that moment, the kid will say yes to anything to have the phone. But if I have a 15-year-old who's already got a phone, you mentioned that they are going to kick and scream, that they're going to have dopamine withdrawals, that sort of thing. What do you say to that parent then? How does that parent approach it in a way, understanding there's going to be a fight, but to try to minimize the fight itself and maybe come out unscathed between with that relationship on the other side?
Well, if for the parent, set the expectations and let the kid know that it's going to happen with plenty of warning. And it's not going to be, hey, by the way, tomorrow you were averaging 8 hours a day. I'm going to cut it down to 2. That's not going to go well. And frankly, isn't the best way to approach it. Have the conversation of the expectations and let them know, okay, so today's Monday, starting next Monday, so you were averaging about 8 hours a day over summer so far, we're going to cut that down to 7. And so you're going to get 7, and we're going to stick with that for a week, and then 6, and then you can even drop it down to 4 after that. Like small incremental changes that it's not going to be a big, huge, giant sledgehammer to the kid's system. And they know that it's coming. They will adapt. They will adjust. They will complain. But you can put that cat back in the bag. It's absolutely possible. I've had tons of families that have done just that.
So, Michael, is there a way? You mentioned the dopamine gets released, and then obviously they go through withdrawals. As you mentioned, don't do it cold turkey. Back them off slowly. 12-step program, whatever. Is there a dopamine? I guess a dopamine replacement that parents could offer. Listen, you're not going to be on your phone. That's 8 hours you're going to have back. I mean, the last thing we want is for the kid to spend that 8 hours now bored and hating our guts all day long, right? I mean, we need to help them fill that time, don't we?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is that in that conversation while you're setting forth the expectations, to then talk to your kid about how do you want to fill that time instead? What do you want to do now that you're not going to have access to your social media? You're not going to have all that extra screen time. Hey, do you want to sign up for a summer camp now? Do you want to make sure you're going over to your friend's house? I'll drive you. Are you going to spend more time in the pool in the backyard? I'll get extra sunscreen. Help them plan for this increase in time. And it can't be, I'll just figure it out. That isn't going to go well. You're right. They're going to get bored. And quite frankly, they're going to probably try to figure out a way around whatever blocks or parental controls you have in place. And so if you can help them plan for what they're going to do instead, because those activities are then going to be dopamine producing, spending time with friends or going to a camp or taking an online coding course or like whatever they want to do, any of those things are going to help, because now it's not just that I lost my social media. I also have gained this other thing that I didn't want to replace my social media, but they are going to enjoy it and it will be overall better for their health.
Talking with our licensed family therapist, Michael Klinkner, about a story out that the U.S. Surgeon General is calling for social media warning labels to protect teens and adolescents. And Michael, all of this just sounds like a punishment to me. And I understand that you're trying to encourage parents to phrase it not as a punishment, but do you have any tips on how to do that? Because if I'm a kid, I just can't help but think, okay, if I've got 8 hours a day on social media and now you're telling me I can't do that anymore, even if it's for my own good, it feels like it just comes off like a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, and I can understand why it's going to come that way. And that's actually a little bit of like why I'm a fan of this idea of putting the warning label on it, however it's going to come. It's that idea that it's in your face now that this is bad and it has deleterious effects on your mental health the more you do it, just like cigarettes have awful effects on your physical health. And so that awareness, you then have an easy inroad around the, hey, kiddo, I love you too much to let you just do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to, for as much as you want to do that. We don't do that with anything else. Kids have schedules. They have to be home at a certain time. They have to get certain things done. They can't just, most of us as parents don't let our kids eat whatever they want, whenever they want. We try to manage, at least as best we can, have a salad with your chicken nuggets, like those sort of things where this is that too. I know it's a big ask for you to manage this by yourself. I'm your parent. I'm going to help you manage this because I love you too much. It's not a punishment. As a parent, I'm finally waking up and doing the right thing to help you in your mental health, because we know mental health is a big deal.
I want to key in on something you just said there, Michael, and that is you said, I want to help you with this. And that seems different to me than saying you're not going to do this or we're going to back your time off. When you say I want to help you with this, it feels to me like you're completely reframing the conversation. It almost sounds like the parent is willing to invest time rather than dictate mandates. And I found in my own experience, this is probably more of a statement than a question. In my own experience, when I've had to punish the kids, if I've included myself in that punishment, it seems like it is more effective. I don't know how you recommend parents discipline their kids, but I always used to say, like, listen, you did something wrong. That means I've let you down. We need to spend more time together. That meant I had to clear my schedule.
Yeah, and so it's that same idea, though. So the punishment is going to be you did something wrong, therefore something bad is going to happen because that's what you've earned as a result of your behavior.
Right.
This isn't that. We're not saying to the kids you did anything wrong. We're saying that the social media is wrong. It is bad. You're not bad. This thing that I was letting you do too much is bad, and I'm not going to allow for it. And you know the other part of this is, right? Mm-hmm. The parents have to cut down on their use too.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to say to you, kiddo, this is inherently bad, then it's inherently bad, and I'm going to limit my screen time too. I'm putting the same controls on mine. Mine is also shutting off after 3 hours. There's not as much research on the effects for adults at this point. Like, we're not chasing that quite as hard. But it can't be good if it's bad all over the place. It's bad for me too. I'm putting the same limits on myself, kiddo. I'm also cutting back the same way I'm cutting you back, and we're both going to end up at 3 hours at about the same time. So we're going to start fresh together.
The Surgeon General says social media warning labels necessary to protect teens and young adults. Michael Klinkner, the social worker and therapist, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.